Down with CGC. Down with CGC. Down with CGC. Down with CGC. What do we want? Lower prices. When do we want them now? Why do we want them now? Because next week we're not going to care about it anymore. That's right. By next week, we're all going to forget that we grabbed our Stormbreakers to protest CGC. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle. Oh boy, the pitchforks are on fire. The comic collecting community is kind of like clockwork. Where's my watch? Like clockwork. Once again, you know, a couple times a year, we're always going to be mad at CGC because here they are once again raising their prices. So in this video, we're going to talk about the price hike. We're going to talk about what has changed in the market. Admittedly, this one is a little bit different because they have eliminated a certain tier that I do think, you know, is going to affect a lot of books out there, specifically books that, hey, Swaggle himself actually likes within that target range. So in this video, we're going to talk about that, talk about kind of the uproar that is going on in the community, and then ultimately maybe land the plane and talk about what we can actually do about it. But before I get into it, if you guys could drop me a like, comment, subscribe, if you're enjoying the content, help support the channel doing those things, I would appreciate it. I've always liked CBCS. I would never say anything about you. I love you, CBCS. What's that? You have a friend? You want to bring a friend? Oh, EGS? Ooh, EGS. Kinky. Kinky. You know who does that? You know which comic collectors do that with CBCS and EGS? Nobody. And that is the problem because everybody has been sucking on the CGC you know what for all these years. But let us kind of talk about this right here. What is going on in the market? Swag, can you be serious for a second? Yes, I will. All right, let's talk about this. We have the recent announcement from CGC itself, price and policy changes. I'll kind of break down this article, talk a little bit about it, and then really point out some of the highlights. Now, they are going to have these changes implemented by May 2nd of 2023. So you have a couple weeks to submit books at the current values that they are before this actually goes into changes here. CCS is now going to be called CGC pressing. I mean, that seems like something that should have been made a long time ago. But really the main thing that, you know, I think a lot of you guys are going to talk about, and of course, you know, I'm sure you guys have already seen this by now. I mean, a lot of people talking about this, a lot of YouTubers, a lot of, you know, social media accounts highlighting this stuff. But of course, we have the updates to the grading fees and the pricing services. Now let's get a couple things clear here. I mean, yes, all of the tiers have increased their prices, but you know, we're talking, you know, pretty minimal on some of them. And I know here come the dislikes. Swaggle is about to take the contrarian view, but before you smash the downvote button, just hear me out for a second, hear me out. All right, let's talk about these three tiers right here. Modern tier fee change to $25. As you guys can see, the current price for it is $24. Now, I mean, $1 increase in this current market with inflation, things like that. I mean, this is a business. Of course, they're going to increase their fees. I mean, that's kind of understandable. I realize that, you know, $25 is, you know, definitely a lot higher up, considering that I think it was only like a year or a year and a half ago when the price was maybe $18 at a point. So I realize that the fee increases maybe feel quite frequent, especially if you're somebody out there who has been a comic book dealer, you know, doing these kind of CGC 9.8 pre-screens and things like that. I mean, that definitely is going to eat into your margins at the modern tier. And I really think that a lot of the uproar has a lot to do with the fact that we're talking about margins here, but I will save that for later on in the video. Economy tier, a name change to vintage tier, fee change to $37 here. Of course, $35 is the current price for it, so an increase of $2. Of course, economy, or now it's going to be called vintage, is any book pre-1975. And again, I think that this is interesting that, you know, while it is only a $2 increase, it is starting to show that it's really a lot of the kind of bronze to silver to golden age books that are going to feel the biggest increases in the prices here. Standard tier, name change to high value, fee change to $85. Standard, of course, was a max value declared of $1,000. Previous price for that was $80, so an increase of $5. Now, $85 is already pretty expensive when you think about it. I mean, let's say you have a book that, is a Silver Age book, and let's say that it's, worth, I don't know, $800. All of a sudden, when you're hit with an $85 fee, I mean, that's 10%, 10% of the value of the comic book just to get it slabbed. I mean, that is definitely eating into your margins. If you're somebody out there who, let's say you're a comic book dealer, or you're a dirty flipper, or you're somebody who wanted to invest in a certain book, I mean, just the fact that you got to eat 10% to get it graded is probably already going to eat into that, sweet spot margin of like 30 to 40% that a lot of comic book dealers are looking to get when they're, effectively playing the middleman, and then when you couple that with, goods and services or eBay fees or whatever, other taxes and shipping and other costs that you have to eat, that 10% can definitely add up. And I think that $85 price tag really starts to make you think, maybe I'd be better off just selling a lot of these comic books raw, which of course, I've had these conversations on the channel here where it does really feel like the raw book has definitely been on the rise. I mean, I had a great conversation on Monday, this week with the Pressable Defects. If you guys haven't seen that video, I'll put a link in the description. We had a live stream and we talked about that topic of raw books. And this was, of course, a discussion that happened before these recent changes. And I really do think that, this is probably going to have an effect on the market to some degree. Now, here's the one that I think is maybe the most interesting, and this is the Express tier. Express tier is discontinued. Submit collectibles valued over $1,000 under the unlimited value tier. I'll read this one before I break it down. The walkthrough tier is now called the unlimited value tier, and the fee changed to 4% of fair market value with a minimum of $150. All right, let's kind of break that down here. So before you used to have this Express tier that, if you had a comic book valued upwards of $3,000, it would cost you $130 to get it slabbed. Then you had the walkthrough tier, which was basically any comic book above the $3,000 range, unlimited here. It would charge you 3% of fair market value with a minimum of $150. Now they're raising that to 4% of fair market value, still keeping the minimum fee of $150 and getting rid of this tier altogether. So all of a sudden, let's say you have a comic book that is worth $1,200. You can't submit it to the standard tier. I realize you can, guys, because you're the one deciding the max value. But let's say that we're playing by the rules here. So you have a comic book worth $1,200 and you want to get it graded. Minimum, it's going to cost you $150 just to get it graded on that $1,200 comic book, which is even more than 10% of the fee that you're going to have to pay on that. So all of a sudden, it's costing you, 15% to get the book graded. And, just off the top of my head, I can think of a lot of comic books that fit in that window, that kind of awkward window of $1,000 to $3,000. There's a lot of great books in there. There's tons of Bronze Age books. There's tons of Silver Age books that are in that tier that are going to be affected by this. And it does kind of make you wonder, like, why is it that CGC eliminated that tweener tier? Now, part of me thinks that, a lot of companies eliminate the tiers that they feel are unnecessary, or the ones that, like, hey, this tier is used much less frequently than the other tiers. And also we make, a lot less money with this tier than we do with the other one. So it does make me think, like, perhaps there is, this market of, say, the bronze and silver and golden age comic books that are priced in that value range, that, the volume in which that they're seeing for books like that being submitted is just not worth it anymore. I mean, you have to assume, right? There is a finite number of Silver Age books out there in the market that want to be slabbed. So with every progressive year, potentially, eventually CGC is going to run out of the ability to slab, a low grade, I don't know, Journey into Mystery 85, right? Like, it just, after a certain point, there's just no Journey into Mystery 85s that need to be slabbed at that particular low grade window anymore. So maybe they're starting to see that with a lot of these books and they're saying, hey, we don't need this tier. On the flip side of that, their modern tier, they're going to have books every single week, right? Like there is a whole infrastructure and there's a whole, treadmill of every week we get new CGC 9.8 pre-screens that come in. That frankly is probably how CGC makes consistent money. I mean, maybe they make most of their money from the whale collectors who like send in an Action Comics #1 and they take 4% of the fair market value for that. Maybe that's how they really make their bulk. But I have a feeling it's the consistency of the week by week, new comic books that get the CGC 9.8s and all those retailer variants and things like that, that's probably how they make the bulk of their money. And they're not really as interested in slabbing these kind of vintage comic books that are kind of in that tweener range. But ultimately, I kind of joked at the beginning, like, is anyone really going to care about this in 2 weeks' time? I mean, this is, the comic book market we're talking about here. We always have, short memories. Everyone gets upset for whatever thing is going on. Everyone is upset that week. And then later on, everyone forgets about it and things just go back to normal. And the unfortunate reality is that the market relies on CGC. CGC still commands the most value on the secondary market. And until that changes, no one who is seriously involved in comic books is going to pivot to CBCS. You're going to be leaving money on the table. The only way that this changes is from an individual level. If you're somebody out there who is sick and tired of it, then you have to be that person that says, you know what? I am no longer going to submit to CGC and I am no longer going to buy CGC comics on the secondary market. Or you have to conversely say, I'm only going to buy CBCS books on the secondary market or EGS books on the secondary market. You have to equalize the values out there so that it is clear and apparent that nobody has a preference to CGC. Now you're probably thinking, how can any one person, change that? How's that ever going to actually, sway the market? I mean, it starts at the individual level. It's like, it's the same thing. Like, you just have to do your part. You just got to recycle. Yes, can you actually change, pollution and recycling and do all that, big business wise? Like, no, you, the individual, can't help it. You got to drive your gas car. What are you going to do about it? But you can do all you can on an individual level. And maybe if enough people start to do it, that can have a ripple effect in the market. Now, before we kind of wrap it up here and, close out this conversation, I did want to say, there has to be a path for redemption for a lot of comic book grading companies. And I did make a video a few weeks back talking about, sort of the uproar in the community about CBCS because they had, their new sort of turnaround times or their new tiers that they shaped up. And they got a lot of negative feedback from the community and actually revamped some of their tiers and their turnaround time. So this is their new turnarounds that they said. So, props to them for listening to the community. Props to CBCS for saying, hey, we hear your concerns. We're going to make this better. Here's our new tier. So you got to give them a shout out. And that's really the thing here is, you got to let these companies know and you got to give them credit when credit is due. If they can make positive changes, or they can say, hey, you know what, we took it too far here, we got to change it back here, and you got to give them a shout out and you got to support their business. There has to be a road to redemption for a lot of these companies, right? Because when CBCS did that thing, everyone is saying, I'm done with CBCS. I'm never using them again. And now CGC is here, everyone's like, I'm done with CGC. I'm never using them again. At the end of the day, if they do good things, you should reward them. If they do bad things, you should take your money elsewhere. And that's really the only way we can make change. Anyways, that's all I got for this video. Let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think about these price increases? I mean, I feel like I've read this script before, especially here having the YouTube channel, doing it over the course of the last 3 years. Every single year, at least 2 times a year, CGC raises their prices, everyone gets upset, and then everyone continues to use them. Anyways, let me know what you guys think. Like, comment, subscribe. See you all in the next video.